Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. Had a lot of intuitive progress, so I figured a double episode science back to back. Irreducible is unbreakable. Law is unbreakable. Again, think the speed of light versus the speed limit. You can break the speed limit, you can't break the speed of light. And when somebody says, you can't break or the laws of physics, right? That prepositional phrase, the law is able. Just connecting those A's. Consciousness. Sensorality is senesality. And that was just from, again, taking the spelling, the C-O-N, science, and then consciousness at the end, and then putting senes, and then generalizing that at the end of that word. Senesality is necessary. And clear kind of getting necessity, necessary. The linguistic similarity speaks for itself. Cessality is cessary. Sensorality is consciality. Consciality is continual, right? Consciousness, for one individual, you die, you go to sleep. But awareness, sentiment, is the emergence awareness of everybody. And so consciality is continual. Consciality produces sentimentality. And so I just wanted to be specific with my scientific research for all of those people that wanted to check my work. And so I had a reference to a video, this is 18 plus, but of a prolapsed anus. And so I wanted to make sure you guys have the right visuals that I have going on. And for completeness of my scientific research, you're supposed to cite your sources. And so it was on Reddit, I don't know, probably like within the past 2 years. So in internet people, there's some Latino dude going to take a shit and his butthole comes out of his butthole. And so what is inversion? If your butthole is coming out of your butthole, that is inversion. And so I want to cite my sources. It's very important as a scientist, as a rigorous scientist, to cite your sources. And that was one of my sources. That is the imagery I thought of for inversion. And so that's what I'm saying, this proof is all subjective, right? What great scholar would have had that great image? Frankly, quite a lot of people, actually. Maybe not that exact image, but I just saw on, it's another one of these science channels that's popular. Redhead, English girl, pretty cute, and American-sounding dude, probably, again, I don't know, 5 years older than me, right around, slightly older than me. But they sit there and they talk science, and they had a video, the evolution of the butthole, or the shape of the butthole, or something about butthole. And so I was very inspired by that. I even left a comment on that video. That's the type of science I like to see being done. But if your butthole comes out of your butthole, that is inversion. Sensation produces logic, right? And that's what you're saying or referencing again when you say, that makes sense. Somebody says something, oh, if you go left, you'll go to Dairy Queen. If you go right, you'll go to Subway. Oh, that makes sense. Sensation produces logic. Sex is scientific. What is hot? Who is attractive? So this is another thing that's always struck me, is what people have now called, again, I know I've talked about most of these things before, but sapiosexual, just meaning you're more attracted to people's intelligence or personality, which I think has always been true. But I just think it's hilarious because, again, with my level of personal awareness, when I interact with people, 100% of all organisms that I've ever interacted with look 50% sandwiched between their mom and their dad. And so it's just like, when people say there's some sort of objective standard, like in this series, we've referenced Livy Dunn gooning to me, which, as we know, everyone's attracted to Brad, so it's understandable. But point being is, if you take the most stereotypical people that are in the public sentiment right now, and again, I don't know, Livy Dunn, Sydney Sweeney, whoever you want to say is just, again, this person is the most attractive. Again, I like females, I don't like the dudes sexually, so, I mean, if that's your thing, go for it. But point being is, when I say what is, like, I like women, and so when I see other people say, this is the most attractive woman, it's just like, there's no objectiveness to any of it. It's like there's some appeal to symmetry, but everyone just literally just looks like, in such like a visceral, you just look like 50% your mom, 50% your dad, and that's exactly what you are. And so there's no objective standard, and again, as a scientific observation, that what people find attractive or hot is speciality, is this, again, differentiation for sexual antagonism. I'm a big business person, I can provide a upper class lifestyle. I'm a very attractive tennis wife. I can dance around in a sunskirt. And it's just so, the actual physical structure of our body, we all look like human beings. And so it's just like, I've always found that really funny. And it's certainly, again, apparent in when I see other people in general talk about, like a group of other guys that are straight males talk about who is the most attractive female. There was absolutely categorically no defining anything. And then objectively, everyone just looks like a human being that's 50% mom and 50% dad. So I always find that funny. But sensorality is sapiality, from sapiosexual. Sensorality is who, right? Who and how are direct iterations. But now, are these iterations or is this a cycling? Again, being extremely specific to our verbs. How, right? How do we go from how to who or who to how? Again, to me, it's like we're cycling that W. It's like you have that at the edge of the universe, does the mouse just come on the other side of the screen type of deal? And again, that question doesn't really make any sense. We addressed that. But just, is this who to how? Is that word, are those letters iterating or are they cycling? Is that a meaningful difference? What are we trying to ask? It was enough for me to point out. I just saw Kate Rooney on CNBC say, in good conscience. And again, she was quoting somebody or referencing something. But business and logically, right, in good faith is in good conscience. And so that was a nice little connector. Shout out Kate Rooney. Language gauges. And that's a natural definition. Gauging sensors. And that's with an S, because again, language comes from an individual articulating, manipulating sound with structure that has solidified meaning that you understand. And so gauging sensors with an S. So here's my big, well, I don't even say it's just continuing on because all of these steps are the same. But, all right, mass is a stabilized dynamic of charge. So explicitly, mass is emergent. Mass is a dynamic, it's not definite. And now we have this irreducibility physically. And so, in the same way, you have to take force per unit surface area as pressure, or, it's volume, excuse me, that's what I was going to, is that mass per unit volume is density. And density is definite. And that closes up linguistically. That is a huge, massive, fundamental theorem of physics, bam. Density is definite. Mass, I keep saying it in this other phrasing throughout this whole series, mass contains space, or mass stabilizes into space, or mass forms space. Density is definite. That is what we're getting to there. And then fundamentally below that, trying to, again, reduce it past what is physically meaningful. Again, mass is stabilized charge. And so mass is emergent. And then just to read out everything I've written down, mass per unit volume is irreducible because mass is volume, right? They're inseparable. Irreducibility is inseparability. Dynamic is definite, dynamic is emergent, right? I have more mass than my notebook. I can prove that by go getting a weight scale right now if you really need me to. But that was a big thing, is that the density is what is definite and the mass is emergent from this dynamic of charge. Big scientific, super science facts. And then we can say the fundamental theorem of physics, charge is irreducible. Again, I know I just said fundamental physics twice, but again, you'll see this over email. I'm sure you guys think this is like me, like all of this intuition comes at once and just like, and then it just switches. Like there's a lot coming in. But then I have the fundamental theorem of logic, as derivation is deduction, right? We can't deduce, there's this irreducibility logically, and then logic is deduction. We're getting closer, deriving is deducing. That is what we're doing right here, is we're contracting all of this information out there for a definitive fact, a proof. Sensorality is, bam, showing the direct iteration of the letters. Density is irreducible. What is reducibility to deducibility? All right, you can deduce down to irreducibility. Irreducibility is the limit of deducibility. Sensorality is deducible. Logic deduces. Density is sensed. See? Now we just flip the word sensed, and its dense is density. Density is densitality. That's a natural definition. Sensorality is densitality. What is memory to density? And that's a direct physical question. Again, how what's SanDisk at? Right? What's my brain doing? Or what do you remember? Is memory proportional to the amount of glial cells you have, the synapses you have, how fast those synapses firing? What is density to memory directly physically? Sensorality is condensitality. Density, condense, condensity. Sensorality is condensitality. Condensing minimizes. And so logically, we're trying to minimize this whole structure to a place of irreducibility and show that pairing to linguistics, letters, and then we use up all of our logic, we contain it within a theorem, and then we reduce the theorem, we derive the next word form. We're getting there, all to go from rhythm to algorithm for you, the viewer, who has paid me nothing, because you're criminals. But that was definitely a big thing, that density is definite. That's probably going to be that'll probably be the title. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one. My rights continue to be violated.